The following videotape is one program in a series of driver training tapes produced by the Lancer Insurance Company for the exclusive benefit of its policyholders. Understanding the passenger transportation industry as we do, we know that it is impossible to define every preventive measure or hazardous situation that bus drivers are faced with every day. Therefore, the safety suggestions presented in each of these tapes are given as guidelines only to better prepare drivers to handle the numerous problems that can arise during the performance of their duties. Lancer has been producing our driver safety video training series since 1987, bringing you tips and information that can help make your driving safer. As a professional driver, safe driving is the most important part of your job, and one of the best ways for you to practice safety behind the wheel is to know and maintain a safe following distance. About 40% of accidents and injuries in the bus industry come from that single problem we call tailgating. But if tailgating is so hazardous, why do drivers, especially professional drivers, continue to ignore the dangers? The usual excuses are that you are in a hurry, or you think you are a better driver than most. You might even think it's impossible to maintain a safe following distance in certain traffic conditions. But when you look at the kinds of accidents that tailgating can cause, and how easily they can occur, this type of thinking is dangerous. First, there is the rear ender. The car ahead stops short, or someone up ahead in a line of cars stops short, and without enough time and space, you collide with one or more of the vehicles ahead. Second, the passenger injury on board your bus. If you are forced to stop quickly, a passenger you may have already asked to take a seat can be thrown down and injured. And when are you most likely to be forced to stop short? When you are following too closely and the guy ahead of you stops suddenly. Third, your bus gets rear-ended. If you are tailgating and you are forced to stop suddenly, the guy who might be tailgating you can easily rear-end your bus. His fault? Sure. But just remember, an accident is trouble no matter how it occurs. Finally, some sideswipe accidents can come from your tailgating. This most often happens when you are in a long line of vehicles and there is some lane changing or merging going on. If there is no room to move in or out, some drivers will attempt to force their way in front of you. This movement in tight spots can create a sideswipe collision. These four kinds of accidents account for almost 1/3 of all bus accidents. And they are severe too. They account for over 1/2 of the cost of accidents in the bus industry. If each of us is concerned about safety, then there is a big lesson here. Leave the proper amount of space between the bus and the vehicle ahead, and 1/3 of all bus accidents will disappear. That means less risk, fewer injuries, and an even safer bus industry. What is the proper amount of following distance? How can you maintain it? And even when drivers know they shouldn't tailgate, some still do. Why is this? To give you some answers to these questions and some ideas on proper following distance, let's join Lancer Regional Safety Manager Ron Fuller at a safety meeting he recently held for a group of drivers.
There in front of the bus is one of the most key areas of which we can be able to help reduce accidents. If there's one concept that we want to be able to share with you is the concept of following distance, the proper following distance between you and the vehicle ahead. In managing that space in front of your vehicle, we can prevent a number of accidents that can occur. We could help to prevent not only rear-ending the vehicle ahead of us, also we can be able to prevent a passenger fall, do a heavy braking. Could be the fact that if we're not able to stop in time, that we swerve to the left or we swerve to the right and hit a vehicle beside us. Or also the fact if we had to stop very abruptly, the vehicle behind us may hit us as well. All based on the fact of we didn't allow enough time, which is also distance, in front of us. Now, one of the simple rules that we can be able to use in allowing a proper following distance is the 4-second rule. In the 4-second rule, what we're judging this on is the fact that a vehicle ahead has just passed a landmark this being highway, this being vehicle 1, us, we're in a bus, which would be vehicle 2. We're heading in this direction. We want to be able to pick a landmark that the back of this vehicle just passed. It could be a crack in the pavement. It may be a traffic sign. It may be the shadow of a bridge overpass. But the rear of that vehicle just passed that particular landmark. And now we count to ourselves. We count 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004. So we're going 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004. If we've reached that landmark in 1004, we're the proper following distance between us and the vehicle ahead. When we think of seconds, what we're doing is time turns into space. We're allowing additional space ahead of our vehicle to be able to manage that so we do not have to stop so quickly out there in traffic. We have time to be able to identify an accident-producing situation and make our adjustments to that situation as well. So the concept we're using the 4-second rule is to be able to count 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004 to the landmark that we choose. If we get there before that, we're too close, we can ease up so that we can allow ourselves to build up to the 4-second following distance. If we get there 1005, 1006, we know that we're a proper following distance between us. We're allowing enough time, but really it's enough space between us and the vehicle ahead.
So, 4 seconds behind the vehicle ahead of you is the suggested safe following distance. Let's look at that 4-second gap. First, in city traffic. And now, let's apply these rules out on the highway. Notice that your time behind the vehicle didn't change. It was always 4 seconds. But your actual distance changed greatly because of the difference in travel speeds. But why is 4 seconds the correct distance? And is it always correct? Let's go to another training session, this one conducted by Lancer Regional Safety Manager Mike O'Brien, to find out why 4 seconds is the correct amount of time. As you will see, Mike is discussing stopping your bus, and in particular, how long a time the actual process of stopping will take.
Actually, there's 4 parts to total stopping distance. The first part is in your head. It's perception. Perception is actually what's going on in your mind or in your head just before something happens, like, and I'll give you this example, a little child runs out between 2 cars in the road and you have to hit your brakes. Or as you're going along parked cars in a 2-lane road, somebody opens the door. Now, if you're paying attention to what you're doing, that means your goal as a professional driver is to have 100% of your mind on what you're doing, driving. If anything interferes with that, your perception becomes longer. For instance, thinking about your sick child, or the dispatcher that just yelled at you for coming in late, or not turning in your log, or any of those other things. That will make your perception grow longer. So what you want to do as professionals is to have 100% of your mind on what you're doing on your driving as a goal. In the United States, perception time usually takes about 3/4 of a second for you to see and understand you have to do something. 3/4 of 1 second. Now, the second part of stopping distance is reaction time. Now, reaction time is after you've seen this child run out in front of the street, you have to do something. In the case of 2-lane road, your normal quickest reaction is to hit the brake. Well, in this case, the reaction time is the amount of time it takes you to physically move your foot from the accelerator to the brake. Not pushing it, just moving it from the accelerator to the brake. That's reaction time. And that is, again, average in the United States, 3/4 of a second. And that's one of the most important parts of stopping distance that we're going to talk about today. The third part of stopping distance in your particular case with air brakes on this coach is lag time. Now, lag may be something may be difficult to talk about, but what it really is if you have an air brake system, when you do push that brake, the air has to move from where it is through the lines to the brake chambers, turn the cams and all those different little mechanical functions that you can find out about in the garage or go look at sometime when you're working on the bus. And that's the amount of time it takes that air to get through the system and work the brake parts to stop the bus. And that is about, and it's an average of 0.4 of a second that it takes that air to get there and move those parts. Now, the very last part of stopping distance is braking time. The fourth and last part. Now, braking is in itself a mechanical function. You have perceived, you have reacted. The lag time is you push the brakes and the air is going through the system. Now the brakes work. The cams turn, the shoes and open up against the drums, and they stop your bus.
In Mike's session, he has identified the 4 elements necessary to stop your bus and the approximate times it actually takes to stop. Perception, about 1/2 to 3/4 second. Reaction, about 3/4 second. Brake lag, almost 1/2 second. And it's taking between 1 3/4 to 2 seconds just to begin to slow down. Then, if we add an average of 2 seconds of braking time to actually bring the bus to a stop, we have a total of 3 3/4 to 4 seconds to come to a complete stop. 4 seconds should be a good minimum safe following distance. But 4 seconds is not always perfect. Adverse weather, slippery roads, nighttime driving, even just higher speeds call for extending your following distance. Some examples can help. For nighttime driving and adverse weather, the demands for safety are greater. Hazards are harder to see and harder to avoid. Therefore, some specific safe following distance rules should apply for these situations. For night driving, add 1 second of following distance or maintain 5 seconds of space. In adverse weather, rain, snow, fog, or ice, you need to add even more space. Certainly a minimum safe following distance under adverse conditions is 6 seconds. Even this might not be enough. Adverse weather and slippery roads could easily call for you to double your following distance out to 8 seconds. Or, under extreme conditions, further back than that might be necessary. We have just one more subject to discuss in our program on safe following, but it may be the most important subject you will hear about today. You absolutely must understand that even though keeping a 4-second gap isn't easy, it is vital for you to always try. The rules of safe following don't take a holiday on those days or on those trips when you're running a little late or when you're just in a little bit of a hurry. And while your skills behind the wheel may be great, you just can't outsmart or outreact the laws of physics. Using the 4-second following distance system, even under the worst of traffic conditions, can prevent accidents. To help illustrate this point, we took our bus out on a lot of different roads, some of which were the freeways in and around Los Angeles. Now, Los Angeles freeways may or may not have worse traffic than anywhere else, but they definitely make everybody's top 5 list for the biggest rush hour driving challenges. One of the most common rear-end accidents occurs as you enter the highway from an on-ramp. As you move onto the ramp, working to merge in with the flow of traffic, you lose sight of the vehicle ahead, whose driver might decide it's too risky to merge, and then slows or even stops ahead of you. Your attention is directed behind, in the mirror, checking traffic so you can pick your spot to merge in. As you note the place where you want to be and step on the accelerator, when you look ahead, you spot the driver who you thought had gone on, stop dead in front of you. This one happens every day, so watch for it. Once you're safely in the flow of traffic,
You need to set up a safe following distance. This should be done right away, because driving too closely to the driver ahead puts your safe driving into that person's inexperienced hands. If that driver does something careless, you'll pay the price for it when you can't stop in time and hit them from behind. You are the professional driver. It's up to you to drive like one. Getting set with a safe 4-second following distance is a simple process. Pick out a car up ahead, find a fixed spot to use to count from, and begin counting when the car in front crosses that fixed point. You should hit 4 seconds when your bus crosses that same fixed point. The 4-second rule always tells you if you're following too closely, as is the case here. 1001, 1002. The solution is to back off. Actually, just let the driver ahead move away from you a little bit further. And then check for your 4-second following distance again. With a good safe distance between you and the traffic ahead, no matter what happens, you're more likely to escape it accident-free.
Setting up your 4-second following distance gets easier over time. Before you know it, you'll find yourself doing it naturally without even counting. And once you get used to seeing the distance that you need, you'll only need to count to check your distance, not to set it. But for now, count every time you set up safe following just to be sure. Now, what happens when someone takes away your safe following distance? Remember, always try to keep that 4-second gap.
As you're driving with your safe following distance, it is certain that someone will cut in front and take away your 4-second gap. What you must do in this case is set your speed so that the space ahead starts expanding again right away. You don't have to brake or even change speeds. You do this by setting your speed just a mile or 2 per hour under the speed of the traffic ahead of you. Then, no matter how many times your safe following distance is interrupted, you are always working to maintain it, giving up a little speed for a lot of safe following.
Now, what about the vehicle behind you? Remember, if you have to stop short, a tailgater is sure to rear-end you. And while this may be the tailgater's fault, you are still involved with paperwork, problems, delays, even possible injuries. If you've got someone tailgating you, make sure you increase your space ahead.
Here is a situation where the driver behind is too close. If he won't back off, you have to. Set up some additional space ahead so that if you have to slow or stop, you can do so gradually and avoid the sudden stop that might cause the tailgater to hit you from behind. At rush hour, everything combines to work against your ability to maintain a safe following distance. Others cut in, but because you've set your speed correctly, just below that of the traffic ahead, the space in front of you grows out to 4 seconds again. The rule is simple. You can't be the fastest vehicle on the road and also maintain a safe following distance. And notice that while the actual distance to the car ahead may only be a few feet, at a very slow speed, that small distance is in fact 4 seconds behind the traffic ahead of you.
Safe following distance is the single biggest safety key you have to unlocking an accident-free future. Let's summarize the vital points to maintaining safety space in front of your bus.
First, keeping a safe following distance can help prevent not only your rear-ender, but it can also reduce passenger injuries on board, prevent you from being rear-ended by a tailgating driver, and reduce the chances of a sideswipe collision, particularly at merge points. Second, you must maintain at least a 4-second gap behind the vehicle ahead, and an even larger gap when there are special conditions that make the longer following distance space essential. Third, 4 seconds is the minimum time of your following distance, given the time it takes for you to perceive and react to a hazard, and for your bus to respond and stop in time to avoid a collision. Fourth, keeping a safe following distance is seldom easy, and in heavy traffic, it is very hard to do. It is vital that you never violate the safe following distance rules, even if you are late or in a hurry. because the first time you do, you could be trapped into an accident you never expected to happen. Remember, safe following is your job. The payoff is being able to drive accident-free. On behalf of Lancer Insurance Company and our continuing commitment to the safety of the passenger transportation industry, this is Jack Burkert. Thanks for being with us today.